So today we're going to discuss anger, and for me it's really topical because for the last 2 weeks I've felt my anger turn into rage, and it's been interesting to say the least. As that actually, it didn't actually start as anger. It started as frustration and irritation that and then it sort of built to anger, and then it built to rage. So it didn't really start at rage. It didn't really start at anger. There was this little irritation happening in my system. And whenever I looked around, there was lots of things that irritated me. And my personal thing is, if there's stuff going on around me and I feel irritated, is it me or is it them? And I ask that question of myself, am I happy with myself? Then it's them. But if I'm not happy with myself, it's me. And guess what? For the last 2 weeks, it's me. And I normally have this little thing that, I go a week and then I assess it. Well, I couldn't even go a week. I think I went 3 days and realized that, it was all about me. It was all about my own internal eruptions and changes and my resistance to it, my trying to control and manage the whole situation. And I wanted everybody to be nice and comfortable and, lovey-dovey. Well, fuck that, because it wasn't working and my body was going off. I burnt myself 3 times. Didn't even tell you girls, I burnt myself 3 times in 3 different places. It was almost like, and they weren't major burns, but they were enough that they left a mark to remind me that I burnt myself 3 times. And it was almost like my external world was telling me, you're burning up, do something with the energy. And I didn't. Until Thursday, when I found myself in slow motion, making my way to the ground and having a conversation with myself as I'm going down. Don't put your hand out, you'll break your wrist, and just land on the hardest part, the best part of your body, which is your butt. I have abundant butt. So, and which is where my fire comes from. It's almost like I landed on my fire and it just exploded upwards. And in that moment, I just came back from the osteopath and I realized that I'd actually put my elbow into my solar plexus and in my ribs, which then pushed my right elbow into my ribs, which is a solar plexus point. It's an identity point. It pushed it in and pushed out the other side. So it actually activated all my emotional side, which was already tight. So I'm grateful that I fell down. And it wasn't about anyone else. I actually manufactured the whole thing. And as over the last 2 days, just coming to that realization that there's things I needed to take action on. One of the biggest things I took action on yesterday, pressed the go button, and there was all this turmoil and it felt horrible to do because, of course, it's new. And it's new for me not to make it okay for everyone else. So for me, rage actually gives me impetus. It's like putting fuel into my car. In the past, whenever I raged, I would clean my house. It was almost like my family would turn on my rage so I could clean the house or mow the lawn. Whereas now I'm actually using it for myself and also in my business. So I don't know how you use rage, how it turns up for you. Well, if you can see my body, I'm a really physical kind of person. So my rage is actually going to turn up in my body. It's not going to turn up in my head. It's actually going to turn up in my body. And I need to look after it because, you can't abuse your body all the time. It's not a good thing. So I need to really start to recognize when I should actually take action. So what do you do with your rage?
I made some notes as you were talking because it brought up a lot for me. I mean, I haven't been enraged or in anger in the last 2 weeks, but I have in my life been in moments of not being able to handle frustration or anger in my life around, I suppose, expectations of others, or where I hold myself, or who I see myself to be. And then I create this, what I call the perfect world that I think I've got some kind of control over. And then people that are usually closest to me will usually be my strongest triggers. And then the anger and the rage can come out of nowhere. But what I realized over that time was that it was merely when I get in my head too much, or when I'm looking at situations from my head perspective rather than feeling into situations, and also fulfilling what my needs are, or connecting with how I'm feeling in every given moment, because it kind of builds up over time. And those little check-ins, when you don't have them, then all of a sudden your sacrum, or your life force energy, or the energy in your lower chakras, tends to build up and build up and build up and build up. And then if you're not having intercourse or intimacy, or you're not creating or painting, or you're not running, or you're not actually exerting, or even expressing the way that you're feeling, it can get bottled up. And I noticed too that I'm using you instead of I. And I think I'm using you instead of I because it's past tense, because I'm not feeling the rage. But what I wanted to say was, natural thing that I noticed was the high voice, or people rise up out of their bodies when there's a discomfort, or there's a feeling going on that you don't know how to handle. It's like you rise up out of your body and you rise into a higher level of understanding, to try and gain understanding or clarity, because the last thing you want to do is drop into your heart, connect in with that anger or rage, and then target it at somebody when it's unnecessary to target it at someone. So there's a maturity that comes from, okay, can I take responsibility for this? Am I handling this? How do I handle it? What do I do with it? Rather than initially dropping down into it and going, oh, okay, that actually hurt me, or I didn't appreciate you doing that to me, because sometimes we put someone else in front of us, or we put their world or their feelings in front of our own feelings, and then that usually builds up a resentment inside. So then what you also said was, I picked up the shame around being angry or being enraged. Like the population in this current time of everything's positive, and we're spiritual, and we work things out, and we're all really kind, and we love each other all the time. Even when I'm angry, I'm going to love you and be angry with my soft voice. And so if someone does actually get angry or raw, or allow this to come up, then there's the shame of, you're not allowed to be angry, you're not allowed to roar, you're not allowed to be enraged. And so it then creates another block on society, where people are enraged underneath the surface, and they have very shallow conversations. Now hear the passion come up in me, and my throat's cracking, because it's like, fuck that. Seriously. I mean, if we want to really save this world, we've got to go into where this is coming from and work out ways of shifting and moving it. So I clean the house. I go into a manic cleaning frenzy where I lose my shit and just clean the house. And I don't speak to anyone, because if someone pokes me, I lose my sense of being able to control it. And then I'll be shamed for being angry, and I'll be shamed for having an emotion, or not being mature enough in my emotions for having anger. And what I related that to is, I'm feeling dirty on the inside. I'm feeling dirty because someone told me once in my life that I wasn't allowed to be angry or enraged. And so my cleaning of the house, if I see the house is clean, then all of a sudden I've done the work to clean myself on the inside, and I can get a handle of things again. So that's my take on anger. Yeah, I don't want to be scared of my anger or rage anymore.
Thanks, Bianca.
that actually segues really beautifully into the energy that's been going on that I've been feeling, which Gillian talked about for over the last couple of weeks. And the other night I had a dream where fundamentally someone took 8 hours to tell me something very simple, and it was a man who told me the message, and he was so nonchalant and, you know, apathetic about passing on this message. And I'd been wandering around looking for someone for 8 hours, and I was so angry, so fucking angry. The fury was palpable, and when I feel into it, I can feel my body rising again right now. It's and I wanted to pound him on the chest, and I started to, but what came up for me was this fear that if I hit him too hard in his heart, then I would hurt him. And then I just tapped into the shame that you mentioned then. So there's this part of me, I can feel the rage and the anger. And I'm not sure if it's an external anger at the external masculine or if it's within yet. I'm still navigating what part of me is still angry with my masculine. Maybe I am. I used to hold a lot of masculine power when I was in corporate, and also with a family of only, you know, 3 men and 2 women, and my mother dropping away and me holding the fort to be strong in this masculine environment. I can feel there's element of myself still raging at that part of me and at the family masculine that I was raised in, where it was really hard to speak. We weren't allowed to speak our truth, you know, the same as you mentioned, Bianca, that sense of being shamed for opening your mouth and sharing your emotion and being shut down. So I was furious. This fury just was so huge, and all I wanted to do was punch this guy right in the upper chest area, and the fury was beyond what I've felt in a while, and I was screaming and screaming in this dream, and it just blew me away when I was tapping into what Gillian said, just how much anger is flying around in me that hasn't found a voice, but it came out in my dream. And it's like, okay, how much am I not expressing what I need to express? Because my subconscious and my dream state is saying, hang on, you've got to get this stuff out of you. You can't just suppress it and let it be spoken, let it come out of you, and find the avenues. And as you said, Bianca, that whole thing about you're not allowed to speak your truth because we're in this spiritual enlightenment time. There is spiritual bypassing at its absolute core. If we aren't true to who we are in the absolute core of who we are, then we are completely dismissing a major part of ourselves in order to keep the peace. And that peacekeeping component is what does the damage, because we're not addressing what needs to become to forefront in the planet and within ourselves. As above, so below, as within, so without. You know, what's going on in here is going on outside. What's going on outside is going on in here. So I can see clearly that I've got work to do in this moment, this awareness of being present to what's the rage, what is it, and own it and go, yep, that's it, I get it. You know, I'm excited that I can get to own this. I love being a part of this group because we are so true with each other. We speak our truth. And, you know, and like you, my throat goes occasionally and it goes all bubbly and I start to crackle. And I love it because there's this place where we can speak our truth. How do we learn to do this? And how do I learn to do this in my greater world, not just within me and my little inner world? It's got the ripple effect has to start to move out. So definitely feeling that.
I'm angry now, right now. You might be able to see it in my face if you can read faces and body language. And the anger for me is definitely in my body. It's in the lower half of my body, and it rumbles, and that lava churns, and it burns me on the inside until I find an outlet for it. And in order to find an outlet, my heart has to crack open bigger to expand, to allow that heat to come out. So for me, anger is actually about creating revolution in my body. Because when that heart has to crack to expand, that's revolution. That is expansion of the way I see the world, the way I experience the world. And if I'm not revolutionizing myself, my life, and how I see the world, then that lava gets trapped and I become a different person. Become sober, and quiet and kind of a bit numb. And this is how I see most people living in this world. They've got amnesia, anesthesia, and they're dead on the outside. And that dead membrane is what encapsulates the fire and the rage. Because the reality is we should all be enraged. Living in this world the way this world is, we should be fucking furious and fierce. And we're not. We're not. We go into the higher realms, the spiritual bypassing, the escapism. We deny, we go into denial in our relationships. We live in a state of denial about the planet every single moment of the day. And what do we do with that? That's my eternal question. I've lived with it since I was very, very young. And I was enraged since I can remember, since I could remember my first thoughts about, why do people live this way here? What the fuck is wrong with them? Why do they trash the planet? Why do they cut down trees? Why do they drive cars that pollute everything? Why? And so I lived with that rage in my body, and I was very sick from young. Had lots of ailments from trapping that fire. So my ongoing challenge is how to channel the fire and to keep revolutionizing my life so that I don't destroy myself from the inside out. So to me, rage is fuel. It is fuel for change. It's not something to be afraid of. And when it is channeled effectively, as in you revolutionize your body to channel that rage, that fire, then you can create enormous impact. And if that outlet matches the amount of fire that you've got in your body, you are a serious creator on this planet. And there are very few of them. So that is my mission in life, is to match my outlet with the fire. And as a lava creator, it's a very uncomfortable task much of the time because I'm constantly cracking. So you might relate to this, and if you can, then I highly recommend that you change the way that you look at rage and anger, because it is fuel if you choose to use it that way. But first of all, you've got to wake up to the fact that it's actually there and when it's there. And that's actually how most people live. They don't even know it's there. They don't know they're burning on the inside. So once you are aware of that, it's what you do with it that matters. So create with it is all I can say. Create with your fire and your rage. Do something constructive with it.